Mexico had never been to the Olympics before for softball. And they had
Oh my
never won an
God.
Olympic game. I think for the longest time, I really struggled with how do I answer whenever somebody says, like, how amazing was it? Because there were points where, as horrible as the coach was, I was looking at my teammates and how they responded. And knowing you're in this no-win type of situation where you can't really respond how you want to. It was the first time I had ever been exposed to a male treating a female that way. And I was like so mad to the point of tears. I think about some of those teammates and the way that they carried themselves and the way that they grew. What an amazing experience to be playing alongside them. And so our very first game we got to win, and it was incredible.
Welcome to Athlete Actually, the women's sports podcast where we ask the questions athletes actually want to answer. I'm Elizabeth Montalvan, a professional water skier and marketing strategist, and this show is produced by Parity, a women's sports marketing and sponsorship consultancy. Welcome to today's episode of Athlete Actually. I'm your host, Elizabeth Montalvan, and today I'm joined by Nicole Mendes, a two-time NCAA national champion, Olympian, and one of the key contributors to Oklahoma softball's historic run at the top of the sport. During her time with the Sooners, she became known for delivering in the biggest moments, finishing her career as a .360 hitter and a three-time Women's College World Series All-Tournament selection. She went on to represent Team Mexico at the 2020 Olympics and has continued her career professionally with Athletes Unlimited and the New York rise of the Professional Softball League. She now continues to shape the game as an ESPN softball and baseball analyst. This season of Athlete Actually is presented by DNA Vibe. DNA Vibe is a new category of wearable regenerative technology designed to support the body's natural recovery processes, trusted by athletes, trainers, and high performers who are redefining what strength, recovery, and longevity look like. DNA Vibe's patented wearable devices combine non-thermal red and near-infrared light, micromagnetic signaling, and microvibration to work in harmony with the body's natural processes to support circulation, comfort, and overall well-being, helping you move better, recover smarter, and stay in the game. If you're training hard or simply want to feel and perform your best, you can learn more at dnavibe.com/recovery. But before we start today's conversation, it's time for a segment called On Our Radar, one thing from the world of women's sports that's caught our attention. Here's the headline. A new report from Deloitte projects that global women's sports revenue will surpass $3 billion in 2026, the first time ever hitting that mark. The context? That's up from about $2.4 billion last year and represents 340% growth since 2022. Commercial revenue continues to lead the way, but what's really driving this is expansion, new leagues, bigger media deals, and more investment, especially across North America. My takeaway? The conversation around women's sports has officially shifted. This is no longer about proving value, it's about scaling it. And the real opportunity now isn't whether to invest, it's how brands and stakeholders can show up early enough to be part of what's being built next. So that is what's on our radar, and this is Nicole Mendes. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. As soon as you asked, I was like, yes, I'm coming. Yeah.
You were such a no-brainer, perfect fit for this show. You're such a great storyteller in your own content, and so it's going to be really fun to hear more about you. I'm calling it the Nicole Mendes lore because there just has to be so much behind you because you're incredible. But first, ground us a little bit. Tell us what you've been up to lately.
Oh, gosh. So it's busy season for me broadcasting. So I broadcast softball and baseball in the spring, and it is just right in the middle of it. So I've been traveling all over, doing a lot of broadcasting, and then I'm working with a few teams, some high school teams and some D1 teams on a mental training company. So whenever I'm not traveling, I'm working with them remotely. So it's been such a blast, but definitely a very busy season. Sometimes I have to look at my calendar and go, where am I? Where am I going next? What time is it?
I have to say, As a avid follower of yours, you make travel look so effortless. Like you are always going somewhere and you always look so good and put together, and then you execute and do the thing and that's all like coming out fabulous. And I'm like, oh my God, how do you do it? Because I know I look like a sewer rat when I travel. Okay. That's as good as it's going to get.
I honestly, this past year, I think the key has been try to be comfortable, but elevate my dressing just a little bit up. And, I give me a lip gloss, give me a good hat, and give me a comfortable pair of jeans. And like, it's a game changer for travel for sure.
I think I might need you to just like do a mini content series on that. I know you have so much free time right now. So like, if you could just like, whip up a little content series on how to look good, travel for work, like I'm here for it.
Of course, I got you. Easy.
Okay, I know everybody wants us to get to the big important question, which is, Nicole, what's your story that no one's ever asked you about?
I think it's more so everyone's assumed a certain story and they never really asked the right question. So in 2020, the Olympics got canceled and they got pushed back. And I had been playing with the Mexican national team, and it had been a really great experience leading up to that. I had played with them for 3 or 4 years at that point, and the women that I got to play with were incredible. I was one of the youngest ones on the team. So looking up to them, learning from them, growing from them, they were just still to this day, some of them are my best friends. So I really, truly do love the women and how they shaped me. But COVID in itself was its own chaotic monster. And you add that onto the Olympics and you're going and you're representing your country. I was playing for Mexico, and it was such a prideful thing because I got to represent a side of my family. Both my grandparents from Mexico had passed away, but being able to represent them meant so much. I had tears in my eyes the very first game, but people always ask, wow, how amazing was the Olympics? And that assumption of just because you go to the Olympics, your experience is 100% and amazing. And it definitely was. And I don't want to take away from that at all. Some of the best experiences of my life, but I do think something that was really difficult and I had to learn and grow and push through a lot was, what is it like to be playing for a country financially that you're not getting any monetary assistance or help? What does it look like to fundraise for that while you're still in college? What does it look like to, quite frankly, like have a coach that isn't the best and treats females in a way that female athletes should never be treated, or even females in general? What is it like to play in the Olympics with no one in the stands and they fill the stadium that's empty with crowd noise? And all of these things happened in the 2021 Olympics. And I think that was something that no one had ever asked. They said, wow, how amazing was it? But they didn't say, how was the Olympics, And so I always felt the pressure to go, oh, it was amazing. So grateful, so thankful, so blessed. And I was, but there is that hovering but on the other end of that sentence of, but there are some things that can definitely be improved. There are some things that were really hard to struggle with. And I think that was really, whenever you ask that question of, hey, like what is something that no one's ever asked, that was the first thing that came to mind.
Wow. I mean, that's an incredible way to kind of pull back some layers on an Olympic experience. And you're right, we don't hear that side of it very often. I think as athletes, we tend to try to, determine, was this a good experience or a bad experience? Was it a good practice or a bad practice, right? And that binary thinking can be so detrimental in so many ways. But in this case, it's detrimental in how you reflect on your Olympic experience. And I would be willing to bet my net worth that you're not the first or only Olympian to feel this way and also feel the pressure to say, oh, but it was good. It was great. I loved it. But there's all these things that I want to say, but if I do, I might sound ungrateful, right? Or like I didn't appreciate this opportunity. I really want to go back to what you mentioned around the coaching component and the coach for the national team maybe not being up to par with what you were looking for at the time, but also how he treated women specifically. What stood out to you there?
I do think that we had an amazing group of women who were strong and powerful and also vulnerable and soft. And so there was this fine balance that a lot of them had. Honestly, it got to the point where it's pretty manipulative of, well, like if you don't do this. If you don't pay for this, then I'll get somebody else. And I know we qualified for the Olympics, but they're going to go in your place. If you don't do this, then you're not going to Olympics. And so that causes a lot of stress. It causes a lot of tension. And these are women that you care about. These are things that are happening to them, things that are happening to you. And you're going like, this isn't right. And you're sick, but it's this Olympic dream. And for softball, last time it was in the Olympics was 2008. So it's not like I have every 4 years and I'm guaranteed that the sport is going to be in the Olympics and I'm good to go. I don't know if it's ever going to be in the Olympics again. And fortunately, it'll be in LA 2028, which is incredible. And I'm really, really excited. But I do think that there was just a lot going on. And while the coach themselves didn't necessarily have the biggest knowledge of the game, I've worked with coaches who are open to learning, open to communicating. It wasn't that way. It was very much a need for control, and I'm the one who got us to the Olympics. So that was just really hard to deal with when it's supposed to be a celebration of your athletic feats and you're supposed to be there. And I forgot to mention the first day that we got to Tokyo, we were there for a month traveling against the professional teams and the college teams in the country of Japan before we got to the Olympics village. And the very first day that we got there, we played a doubleheader and I tore a ligament in my ankle. So I actually was playing the Olympics with a torn ligament, and that just like adds a little bit more of a damper.
Oh my God.
So it was a crazy experience. But again, like I think for the longest time, I really struggled with how do I answer whenever somebody says like, how amazing was it? Because there were points where, as horrible as the coach was, I was looking at my teammates and how they responded, and knowing you're in this no-win type of situation where you can't really respond how you want to, but the grace and the strength and the dignity with how they handled it, I think was truly something, because I'm fresh out of college and these women are 3, 4, 5 years older than me, and I'm getting to see this and experience this. And it was the first time I had ever been exposed to a male treating a female that way. And I was like so mad to the point of tears, where I'm like, you shouldn't be treating somebody like this. And just frustrated. And instead of being frustrated to that point, I got to see, yes, you're feeling this way. What does it look like to take the next steps? What does it look like to continue on? And the burden is still there, absolutely, and all of that. But the strength that they showed was just truly incredible. And I think about some of those teammates and the way that they carried themselves and the way that they grew. It was just seriously like, what an amazing experience to be playing alongside them. And that's where I go, yeah, the Olympics was great, because that's who I got to play with. That's who I was fighting with side by side. We got to make history. We won our very first Olympic game. Mexico had never been to the Olympics before for softball. And they had never won an Olympic game. And so our very first game we got to win. And it was incredible. And we got to hear the Mexican national anthem being played. And we're just standing there in the stadium. And there's just like this moment where it's just you and your team. And it's just incredible. And, the highs and lows. And so for the longest time, I didn't know how to answer, how was this experience when it's so great, but also so chaotic and honestly like horrible at the same time. Like, how do you handle that? How do you manage it? How do you tell somebody like, oh, well, it's good and bad. And I think that was a really hard thing, because it felt like it could only be one or the other, when it really was a mix of both.
Yeah. First of all, I'm so sorry that you had such a terrible experience with a coach. There's so many things that are so detrimental to athletes' careers, right? Injury, financial strain. But when there is a particularly toxic power dynamic in the mix between a coach and athlete, or multiple athletes, it can devastate an athlete's career. It can completely derail it. It can end career. And so I'm so sorry that you had that experience. You don't deserve that. No women in sport deserve that experience. But I'm so happy to hear you had teammates who had the experience to uplift you, potentially protect you, teach you how to navigate this situation. I know in a fun way, we call them girls, right? But, really it's when we have those athletes who are a few years older than us and they're willing to lend their leadership and kind of, put their wings around us and protect us a little bit, that can also be a make or break it moment for a young athlete. Do you think that spirit of looking out for who's coming behind you. Is that like predominant in softball, or was that special to this team specifically?
Definitely predominant in softball. I think a lot of struggle, not just with the Olympics being in, being out, but also the professional league. It's been around for a long time, and people go, wow, I see AUSL, and that's incredible that softball finally has a pro league. And I'm like, it's been around literally since the 90s. And no one knows because it's been such a struggle to get it off the ground. And with that, all the professional athletes that have come before have done such a great job of just not only trying to push and advocate for, give me a little bit more, push this a little bit more, we deserve more, but also as soon as you come in as a rookie, you're being told, hey, this is what it is and this is what we deserve. Do not settle for this. This is unacceptable. They're going to try to do this. You're not going to accept it. And I think that's something that's amazing. And you don't always see that in the day-to-day living that you have out in the quote-unquote real world. But whenever you talk to these women in softball and how they push, and they don't just think about themselves, and I think it's a credit to how hard we've had to fight to be able to go, how do we grow this game? How do we make it to where it's at a level, and we're seeing what's happening in soccer. We're seeing what's happening in basketball with the female leagues. And we go, oh, I want that. I want to do that. And if they can do it, we can do it. And I think that's been more of a push now than ever of the people who have been there, have experienced it, looking to the younger generation saying, here's how we can.
Yeah, in our Gen Z research on fans of women's sports, I feel like where my mind immediately goes is those team based sports that create such great community, especially for kids and through, their adolescence. And my mind immediately goes to softball. It goes to volleyball. It goes to lacrosse, because I see such tight knit communities that are just so insanely passionate about what they do. And when you really think about it, of course, I've never played any of those 3 team sports that I just mentioned, but, my friends that I had who did, it seemed like so much of their life was dedicated to getting to practice, getting to tournaments, all the things around it. And when you have a sport that really draws people in to spend that much time in it, there's something really special there. You know what I mean? And so I think, again, softball is really one of those properties that's just going to blow up. We just need the right few investors and players to kind of put those pieces together, but it's absolutely on that trajectory. Now, you mentioned that it was on the team, it was on the players of Team Mexico to do a lot of fundraising to pursue this Olympic dream. I guess that's not that unusual to hear about in the context of the U.S. doesn't fund any Olympians and Paralympians on their journey to the games. So I guess I can kind of see how that would be possible and would happen. But at the same time, I'm still a little bit shocked. Tell me a little bit about what your team had to do to raise those funds and what that pressure was like for you guys.
Yeah. And the program has completely turned over. There's new leadership. So I no longer play with Mexico. So I don't know if this is current or up to date, but at that time it was, we're paying for our flights to go to training camp. We're paying for flights to go to competitions, or we pay half of it and then they pay the other half for us to go to world competitions. It was very much a struggle to get a clear answer. Hey, this is when you're going to get paid. Hey, we're going to refund you. And so a lot of the women on the team, they were a couple years out of college. Some of us were still in college. And so there's that financial burden of, okay, well, how much am I going to have to shell out? How much do I need to fundraise? And so I think it was very much, all right, well, we'll do lessons to supplement our income in the meantime. Okay, well, hey, mom, hey, dad, like, this is my dream, and very, very hard conversations to have, especially for whenever you're a high performer, you're like, I want to do it. And whether that's competing for an Olympic medal or whether it's being able to provide for yourself financially. And so that was just a struggle because you didn't have an exact number. You didn't have any idea, and you had no idea if you would ever see that money again.
Right.
And so it came down a lot to, all right, well, we wanted to get jerseys, and there were certain jerseys that we had, but they were about 5 years old. And so we pitched together and we got some new jerseys. So it was just like, it was very much an experiencing it felt like a grassroots level. But again, the way that I think it's truly incredible, the way that the women on the team, to your point of being so tight knit, whenever you quote unquote trauma bond together, you're stuck together for life.
That's
Um,
true.
but there have been a ton of situations that we had to navigate over the years, and leading up to it, it wasn't as bad. But I would say in 2019, 2020, 2021, that's whenever it started to get the dynamic of the team, the coaching staff, the program start to feel a little different.
I see. And this is a really good reminder that the way a national team can operate is not always reflective of what you expect at like a pro league level, right? And I think people assume if you're
Yes.
on a national team, you're getting the best of the best, just like you would get in insert pro league name here. And that is not the case always. And they can look completely different. And yeah, this is just a really great example of that because I think it just doesn't get talked about enough. Just like, to your earlier point, we don't talk about the less than wonderful side of competing at that very highest level. At the Olympic Games, at the Paralympic Games. I want to hear a little bit from you on, being so young, and had you just graduated college by this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's this whole other side of this big lead up, right? So
Yeah.
I'll take you all the way back to whenever I was 9 years old and the USA softball team came to play the University of Houston. I grew up in Houston and they played at a city park, and I went with my team and we're doing cheers in the stands. We get autographs from the team members afterwards, and I'm walking back to my car with my mom afterwards, and I tell my mom, like, Mom, I want to play in the Olympics one day. And it was a dream. In
Yeah.
2008, it goes, right, this is the last Olympics. It's done, it's over with, and crumbled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get older and I start to have these goals of, okay, well, this is what I want to do. And I want to go play in college. I want to win a national championship. I want to win professionally. I want to play professionally. I want to do all these things. And it was announced that softball was going to be back in the Olympics in 2020 in Japan. And I immediately add that to my list. So I'm going through college and my career, and I get the invitation to play with the Mexican national team. And it is a blast. It is so much fun. Again, the people that you play with truly does make a team. And I win 2 national championships. I go on to have all this success. I go on to have an incredible coach, incredible teammates at the college level at Oklahoma. And then I go on to play in the Olympics, and I played professionally. And I'm like, check, 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 all these goals and dreams that I've had since I was literally 10 years old, long term,
Yeah.
accomplished. And then I'm just like sitting. I immediately get back from Japan. I have a week, and then I'm back on campus finishing up grad school, and I have no idea what I want to do. And professional softball doesn't pay great. So if I want to play, I got to find a way to make money, and I got to figure out a career, and I need to figure out how to manage all that emotion that I had just gone through with the trials and tribulations of the Olympics experience in Japan. And then what are my goals? I don't know. I just accomplished all of them.
Yeah.
Question mark. What's next? And I think that's one of the hardest things is as an athlete, you're always working towards something. And I just didn't, because these were such long-term goals. I never really thought, okay, well, what's next? And so that identity piece, I was 22, literally won a national championship, stayed at home for 2 days, and then I joined the Mexican national team. And then we went on to go to the Olympics. And I get back. And that was my summer. That was my senior year of college into the summer. And then in the fall, I'm just sitting there twiddling my thumbs going, well, now I no longer have a team. The program that I worked at as a GA within the athletic department, I was privy to a lot of information. So
Mm-hmm.
there was restrictions on like, I can't really have those same relationships that I had with at student athletes before. There had to be that boundary line. And well, then there was the isolation piece. And I found a
Right.
great group of GA friends in college, but still it's not the same. And you lose that identity and you lose that piece. And even though it's playing professionally, you don't get to work out quite the same way that you do whenever you're in a team sport with your
Mm-hmm.
team day in and day out. You don't get those reps the same way. And so there was a lot of question of like, what is not my identity, but like, what is the path forward? What is a decision that I need to make? Is it worth it? Do I want to do it? Can I afford to do it? And so that fall of 2021 was probably just a lot of deep diving into what is it that I want out of my career? What is it that I want to do for next steps? And I just had never felt so unprepared. And being the person that was always on top of it, super talented, super disciplined, super dedicated. And now I have zero answers and I have no idea where to take my first step forward. That was really hard to navigate. And I talked to a lot of friends in other sports as well who had recently graduated. And it was similar experiences.
Something we hear a lot in sports is kind of that origin story of, I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old and I had this dream and I chased it for this long and I achieved it, or I'm still on the path to achieving it, right? And it's poetic and it's beautiful and we all love hearing it and reading about it. But you're right. There is not a lot of content, a lot of media around, I've achieved every goal. I've checked every box. I'm standing at the very top of this mountain. And the only way anywhere from the top of this mountain happens to be down, right? And we've read a few pieces about it. There's been some things about post-games blues, but there really just isn't enough discussion around that experience for an elite athlete, in my opinion. What comes after the pinnacle of each season, or maybe the pinnacle of your career? So for young athletes who are looking ahead at their big event, right, their big goal, and they haven't planned anything for what's on the other side of that because they're just in the hunt right now, tell us, what did you do to navigate that kind of dip in spirit, in morale, in motivation, in direction? This episode of Athlete Actually is supported by Sport Certified Powered by iHerb, a collection of supplements rigorously tested for quality, purity, and performance. For athletes, what you put in your body matters. Sport Certified Powered by iHerb products are tested to meet strict standards, giving you confidence that what's on the label is what's in the bottle. From protein and hydration to essential vitamins and recovery support, their lineup is built for active lifestyles. You can explore the full Sport Certified collection at sportcertified.com.
Yeah, I think it's so funny that you say that because right now I am in Chicago and tomorrow I'm going to be speaking to a bunch of juniors and seniors in college. It's the Next Game Summit. And what they do is just help prepare them and say, hey, here's what's coming. Like, here's what's next. If you want to pursue professional, great. Here's some resources. Here's some avenues. Here's what it really looks like. If you want to go into the professional world, great. Here's some contacts. Here's some ways to get connected. Here's how you create a resume, right? And these things that seem so simple on the other side, whenever you're in college, your whole world is eat, wake up, work out, go to school, train, practice, homework, sleep, do it again, compete. And beyond that, there is not too much looking except for, I know summer's coming and I get to take a break from my sport. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever it may be. And that's something that's truly not talked about enough. But I think something that I'm going to speak about tomorrow is the importance of looking outside of your sport while you're still in college. And what I mean by that is finding friends who are outside of your sport. And it's so easy, and outside of athletics, truly, because it's so easy to stay in that athletic world, which I think is fantastic. And there's so much support there. But there is a little bit of grounding that happens whenever you have a friend that's outside of it. And if you look at me and say, well, they just don't get it. I know they don't get it because they're not doing it. But what they're doing, you don't get either. And that doesn't mean that you can't connect and you can't relate to one another and you can't have those solid friendships and foundations. And it really helps stabilize you whenever you move on from the next phase. Because whether you play professionally or go on to a job, it's going to be different. It will not be like college. And I would say first thing is find connections outside of sports. And that helps with grounding you a little bit. The second thing that I would say is find out what are the things that you enjoy outside of your sport. The year prior to me graduating, I tore my ACL. So I had a little bit, and then COVID happened. So I had a little bit of check-in of like, hey, what is your identity? Who are you outside of your sport? So whenever I finished, there was a question of what do I do? But I didn't have the question of who am I? But I do hear that a lot of like, who am I? What is my identity outside of this is my job? This is my entire life and it's absorbed by this. And so finding things that you enjoy outside of your sport, finding out who you are, finding out what your identity is, and take the time. And it feels like, oh gosh, I don't even have 5 minutes. I just want to take a nap. I get it. I get it. But if you do that now, it's very much like whenever you're going into college, everyone talks about time management.
Mm-hmm.
Going out of college, I think there needs to be a higher stress of preparation management. What are you doing to prepare? You would never go into a competition or a game or a match and not have no idea. I don't know who I'm playing. I don't know what I'm trying to do. I don't know what my goal is. You would never do that as an elite athlete. So
Right.
why in the world would you set that off for that next phase of your life that's inevitably coming? Would you go, oh yeah, like we'll just wing it? You would
Mm-hmm.
never do that in elite competition because that's who you are. That is who you're trying to be. You're still that same person. The context is just a little different.
I love that mindset. It reminds me of one of your taglines, which is you are the utility player in life. I think that's brilliant. And I would never, ever, say that you are someone who is like one dimensional. Your world seems so big. You are so multifaceted. And so all of that completely aligns. Did you come up with that kind of line about yourself? When did you come up with that? And what would you say is like the origin of it? Because I feel like this whole story so far is kind of like led us to that point, and it just makes it that much cooler. But I want to hear it from you.
Yeah. So I was a utility player in college already. I pitched, I played outfield, I played first base. So I was used to, and I hit. I was used to running into a lot of different directions, being pulled in a lot of different directions. And I'd always communicated that, but there was this fine line of, well, that's sports, that's athletics. And it was probably about 2 years ago, I was at a marketing conference and Morgan Stewart, she's defensive specialist for softball and baseball, and really just an incredible person. I always enjoy talks with her. And she was at that event and we were having dinner one night and we're all talking. There's a group of us and she goes, somebody was saying something about being a utility player in like real life and like how you have to wear all the different hats. Like, you're such a utility player in real life. And I was like, never thought about that. Like, I never felt like I quite fit in and I was just that one hat. I felt like I was curious and I wanted to have all these things, but I never would have phrased it quite like that. And so as soon as she said it, I was like, you're right. am. I am. And I'm so used to that. And I love it. And that is where I want to be. And I don't know why. I had also at the same time been kind of feeling this pressure of, I have to have one job and I have to do one thing because that's what everyone does. And that's what all my friends who are entering in corporate are doing. And if I want to be a quote unquote success, that's what that journey looks like. And whenever she said that, I kind of sat with it over the weekend. I loved it immediately, but I kind of sat with it over the weekend and I was like, oh, holy cow. I am somebody who is a professional softball player. I'm somebody who is a broadcaster for multiple sports. I'm somebody who owns a mental training company. And I'm going through this list. I'm somebody who loves traveling, who is a foodie through and through, somebody that loves to give talks and does public speaking. Like, I do all these things and I do all these things really well. Why in the world do I feel like I need to stifle myself into one profession? And if you want to, that is great. That is just not me. And I need to hang on to that. And I need to remember that because the struggle of the comparison really hit home. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to say that as a reminder. And I'm going to go anytime I feel that tug of, well, that's not what they're doing. Well, they're getting paid this much. Well, they're getting these opportunities. Well, maybe I should just focus on one thing. Remind myself, like, you are a utility player in real life. It's not limited to just the softball field. It is what you do. It is who you are through and through. And you enjoy life because you experience life in multiple different areas. And there's no restriction and there's no rule that says you can only do one thing. And you just were fortunate enough to experience a lot of your careers early on. And I think that was really that like tipping point of, you know what, that's going to become my tagline and I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it. So thank you, Morgan Stewart. Maybe I should like license it. I don't know. Utility player in real life.
You should trademark that one.
I trademark it. Yeah.
I love that this is just another example of a time that a woman or women in your sport have had your back and helped make you better. That is just such a cool through line on your entire story. And I know that you are the kind of woman who would turn around and do the exact same thing for anybody else. But I think a really valuable lesson here is that, for athletes who feel like they're struggling with identity, maybe it really is just that you're trying too hard to be an expert at one thing and you're actually an expert at so many. And it's like being unbalanced, right? It would be like if every night for dinner you only ate one specific food. That's not a balanced plate. That food can be as healthy, it can be perfect, but alone, it's not really going to do a lot for you. And I think this is just a great message to those athletes out there who are multidimensional and they don't want to have to cut away pieces of themselves to fit into a box, even if that box is excellent, right? And it's the best of the best at something. Sometimes really to be you have to be really good at a lot of things because you just have that much potential and fire inside you. And Nicole, you are absolutely one of those people.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate that. I truly do think it's so important that even if you are a specialist, quote unquote, on one thing, like your metaphor of eating a meal, you're not just that one thing. You're a friend, you're a sister, a mother, a husband, whatever you are. And whatever that one specialist, that may be the main portion, but there has to be other things involved. And so I think there is a relief in knowing and being okay with going, okay, like, it may be smaller, but I'm not just one dimensional and I don't have to have it all figured out and be an expert immediately right away in this one thing. There's things that I can experience.
That's so cool. Tell me a little bit about what you've got coming on the horizon. I mean, I think we all know that it just means Nicole's going to learn more things and become really good at new things. That's what's on the horizon. But if you would be so kind, what's on your calendar?
Yeah. One thing, and this is professional life aside, I think this is something that I started back in August and I've taken it and I've run with it let me dive a little bit deeper into real life. Like, what is experiencing life? What do I want to get out of life? And I think one thing that I really want to find more of is like joy and connection and community. So I challenged myself to try new things starting in August. So since then, I learned how to make pasta. I did a coffee tasting class. I hate coffee, but I tried it and it was so much fun. Will I drink coffee? No, but I now know what notes and smells and how to make it very well. So I tried jujitsu for the first time. I did sand volleyball, like all these different experiences. And they have been so rich and full, and I don't need to fully dive into that community to see it and appreciate it. I've gone to Broadway shows and just things that have stretched me and pushed me to think outside the box, and they have helped me. And one of the biggest ways that it's helped me, I mentioned I own a mental training company called Growin. So specifically, I work with high school age students and smaller D1s. And one thing that I love is it's not your whole world. Whenever I get to experience what else there is to offer, I realize this is not my whole world. There's more to life. And it's really helped me add in this level of, I'm going to teach you how to compete and I'm going to teach you how to be the best. And I'm going to give you that mindset and I'm going to give you the tools to lay that path. But I'm also going to teach you how to be a human and an athlete, not be an athlete who has a side life. And that's something that is so, so important and not trained enough because you have to train it. Anything that you do, you have to train. And so I had that coming up on the horizon. I'm working with some high school teams, some travel ball teams over the summer. And then into the fall, I start working with the college team. So I am beyond excited about that. And then broadcasting, that will carry on through. Regionals are coming up in about 4 weeks now. And I can't believe it. Softball season, as quickly as it came, I feel like it's slipping out of my hands. But professional league, AUSL is here in the summer. So gonna get to do some things with them. And then going into the fall, a couple of volleyball games on the broadcasting end. So yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah.
So happy for you. This is all wonderful. You deserve it and more. Before we wrap, I want to move to our segment called The Last Lap. So, Nicole, if you, Nicole Mendes, were the answer to a sports trivia question, what would you like that trivia question to be?
Okay, this is one because I went to school at the University of Oklahoma. Now, some backstory. Lauren Chamberlain, she broke the home run record for most home runs in ever. Not single season ever. She also had single season at our program. Jocelyn Allo broke her record for most home runs ever. There's currently a freshman who broke the single season freshman record. She hit 32 home runs. The season still has about like 6 weeks left. It took Jocelyn Allo literally an entire year to do that. She broke it at the Women's College World Series. Now, with single season all time, freshman or anybody is 37. So safe to say she's going to be on pace to break that record as well. There's a lot of hitters. And beyond that list, there's about 5 other Sooners that are in that top 10 home run all time list.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of power. So my claim to fame is that I own the highest RBIs, and it came from 3 home runs in a single game in postseason. And I held that record at Oklahoma. And so I may not have hit the most, but in that game I did. So that would be my trivia question. Who holds the highest single game RBI home run record? So, yeah.
Hell yeah. You know what? We love consistency, but we also love somebody who can really shine under pressure in the moment. Like, hey, we need those athletes too. I'm one of those, so I'm with you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Nicole, thank you so much for being vulnerable and opening up about the good and bad of the Olympic experience and how it's shaped your career. This has been such a special episode to me, and I think it's going to matter to a lot of athletes out there. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was great. It needs to be talked about, and I think I really do think that what you're doing is so special. And so I can't wait to hear all the stories that are going to come out.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Oh, and what's your Instagram handle? I should have done this earlier. For people who want to follow along with you and your amazing life, what's the handle?
Instagram handle is at Nicole, Nicole _MENDES_. And you'll find some variation of Nicole _Mendes_ on Instagram, on TikTok, on X, on Pinterest. I don't know. Go wherever. But those are my socials. All the places.
Yeah. Go find our girl, Nicole. You're going to want to follow her. Like she said, it's going to be a great year and beyond. Thanks for listening to Athlete Actually. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow, rate, and share with someone who should be part of the conversation. To learn more about how brands are partnering with pro women athletes, visit ParityNow.com.